Hi, I'm Karen Large from FluteInAFew.com, and I'm a flute professor at Florida State University. This is a teaching video for the 2020-21 Florida All-State 9th and 10th grade band Flute Lyrical excerpt. Before you watch, take a second to visit Flute in a Few and get the handout that goes with this excerpt. I've also got a performance video of the excerpt, and both links are below. First, a disclaimer. The ideas presented here belong to me alone and do not represent the Florida Music Educators Association. The big idea in this excerpt is to strive to create long, beautiful lines while using all of the required technique, including support, breath control, dynamics, vibrato, intonation, and hearing the other part in your mind. Though you are supposed to play the top line starting in measure 11, this is actually the harmony part starting at measure 11, and then you get the main melody at measure 23. The first couple times I played through this, I thought it sounded so strange, and then of course I looked at the second part and said, oh, that's because second part has the melody. I have taken the liberty to record myself playing the bottom line, and that way you can practice along with me. Phrasing and direction. This excerpt is in E major, so warm up on your E major scale and arpeggio. A tempo has been given, which is quarter equals 63, so stick to that tempo. It's very important to have long lines and forward direction, and to do that, you'll need to plan your breaths and dynamics. So for dynamics, because there aren't very many written dynamics, you'll need to add a lot to give the line shape and direction. I've planned some for you in addition to the written ones. If you want to use those, that's great, and if not, that's fine too. In measure 13, I play mezzo piano. I have a kind of a growing in that gesture, and then measure 15 grows even more to mezzo forte. Measure 17 is a decrescendo down to the B in 18, and then measure 19 and 20 I do a hairpin crescendo decrescendo. In 21 and 22 I do another hairpin crescendo decrescendo. Measure 25 I changed to mezzo piano because I like the idea of this growing. So at 23 you play that gesture piano, 25 you play it mezzo piano, and then at 27 it's mezzo forte. That's what I've changed it to, and I like that because then it really grows. And then at measure 30 I do a little bit of a taper at the end because I just think it sounds lovely. Vibrato. You need to use vibrato in this piece. The intensity of the vibrato will match the intensity of the dynamic. Experiment with all different speeds and intensities of vibrato and make a plan for your piece. Generally, you'll vibrato on quarter notes and notes that are longer than that, as well as slurred eighth notes, which I think is challenging for some folks. If you need an exercise for vibrato, especially for learning how to do different speeds, I've included it on the handout. So you'll go down in half steps and you will experiment with pulsing vibrato in triplets, quadruplets, quintuplets, and sextuplets. So that's triplets. Here's quadruplets. Quintuplets. And finally, sextuplets. That one's pretty fast for that tempo. Your intonation is going to vary based on your register and your dynamic as well as tendency tones. Be sure that your middle C sharps aren't too sharp, and watch out that your high notes aren't sharp and your low notes aren't flat. So there are two things I recommend that you do to improve your intonation. The first is to fill out a tendency tone chart. Basically write down all of the notes that you can play on flute. Then have a friend or your family member hold the tuner. As you hold your note, they'll write down how many cents sharp or flat you are on the page. And then they'll give it to you and you'll see what your tendencies are. And then when you're practicing over the next few weeks, you try to shift your tendencies to be more in tune. And then maybe a few weeks later, you have your family member do the same thing again and see if you've improved your tendencies. The other thing that you can do is, and I do this all the time, I have my tuner on my stand, but I don't look at it all the time because then I'll lose all of my expression. So I'll have it on my stand, I'll play my excerpt, and I'll tune all of only one note. So for example, E. So every time I hit an E, I'll play, and then when I hit an E, I'll hold it, then I'll look at my tuner to see if I was in tune. And if I was sharp, let's say, then I'll do it again, and when I hit the E, I'll try and hit it a little lower, and then I'll check my tuner and see where my tendency is. You can do that with all of the notes in your whole excerpt. Trills. So because this duet was written in 1789, it would be convincing to do trills starting at the written note or from the note above. My preference is to start the trill on the printed note. So to do those trills, at measure 22, you're going to finger a G sharp and wiggle your left hand ring finger. Make sure you keep your A flat key down. At measure 23, you're going to finger a C sharp and trill both trill keys. Measure 24, you're going to finger a B and wiggle both the pointer and the thumb, if you can see that. If you have a C sharp trill key, which I do right here, then you can press that, but that's usually on professional flutes. In measure 27, it's just an A to B trill. In measure 29, you finger a D sharp. Make sure you lift your left hand pointer finger for that, and then you trill your right hand ring finger. The E is a little thin because of the lifted pointer finger, so make sure your trill is quick. Articulation. Play everything connected with a supported airstream behind all tonguing. In measure 12, play the staccato quarters with a light separation between them, not super short. Breath control. You should always have at least 20% of your air left in your lungs when you take a breath. If you have less, your support will begin to collapse and your tone, intonation, and dynamics will suffer. My recommended breaths are at the end of measure 12, after beat 2 in measure 15, after the B in measure 18, the end of measure 20, the end of 22, the end of 24, the end of 26, and after the low B in measure 28. Don't forget to engage your support muscles. This makes the breath go farther. So speaking of support, what is it? Support is the engagement of your abdominal muscles, obliques, intercostals, and back muscles, and it allows you to have a consistent airstream through all registers and dynamic ranges. It's incredibly important, and flutists tend to not support on low notes and also soft notes, but they should support all of the time. I like to think of it as a switch. So turn your support on before you start playing, and do not allow it to turn itself off except briefly when you're breathing. Support is when you engage those muscles that I talked about, and you can feel it. And you'll notice that if you've never played with consistent support, this will be work for you, okay? It's worth it. You will sound so much better. Mental training. Be sure to do mental training before your audition to set you up for success. So many people learn all the notes and work so hard, but if you don't mentally train, that's half the game. That's half of an audition, is how you prepare mentally for it. One of the things I like to do is think of a challenging audition. Maybe you'd have to play very early in the morning, or maybe your heart rate gets really fast. Maybe you won't be able to take as deep of a breath. Try to replicate these scenarios by playing at 7 in the morning, or running some stairs before playing, or taking the piece extra slow so you can feel what it's like to run out of air. Other ways to mentally train: play for as many people as possible. The feeling of auditioning becomes more comfortable the more you do it. Record yourself and listen back objectively. So when you listen back, pretend like it's not you. Finally, develop a phrase or a mantra that reminds you of how you play when you play your best, and you might even want to write it at the top of your page. Good luck, best wishes, contact me if you need anything. The flutists in Florida are talented and motivated, and you're going to do a